From a dusty old FX build to the hot new Ryzen, the quest to build my wife a new kicking gaming rig continues now.
Chaos and oblivion.
It's complete! Oh, this is awesome. It didn't take as long as I thought. I actually don't know what time it is. It is 1:36. It's taken me about 2 hours so far with a test boot. This case is pretty nice. I was a little concerned by the B Gamer text on the front, indicating that maybe it wasn't so great. And while there are some corners cut that might have me a little bit concerned, this is a pretty sick looking build. I'm gonna show you a couple points about the case that I like/dislike real quick here. I was really concerned by that SSD caddy, as I was really worried that it wouldn't work out. Like, I couldn't figure out how you would get this SSD out. But this was actually a clever problem to solve. Now, I don't actually need the 3.5-inch bays right now. I'm ideally not putting any spinning drives in her system. But there's this little screw right here that I didn't see because of the height. You pull that out real quick, you get a swing door access to the SSD caddy, and then it comes back over here, and if you wanted, you could actually display the brands or whatever of the SSDs that you were using, which is pretty neat. Now, I wanted to focus on the color aesthetic and not the brand of choice of SSD, so I went ahead and put it in the second slot. The only concern is stressing the SATA power connector in that back. If you don't have enough slack to give it, then it will pull that down and you could potentially break it off of the back of the SSD there, which is a little bit of a concern. Cable management is about what you would expect for a small case like this. It kind of sucks. This is not the side that's facing out. This will be the side facing the wall, so it's not a huge deal, but I have nowhere to really run these cables that won't be in the window here, although there were some cutouts in the front. So I did the best I could without spending too long on it and make sure this fan wasn't blocked, but otherwise good. Over here on the back, I really like this system for the PCIe brackets. You have this little thumb screw here, and then this slides up and down. However, if you want to leave this on while you're using it, the screw does get in the way of this screw that I needed. So you might want to take it out completely and then put it back. I didn't do that, so I just made my life more difficult. But then you don't even have to fully tighten that back on. You can just thumb screw it back, and it holds the PCIe brackets down, which is kind of neat. And by the way, if you somehow missed it, it does have this whole front sort of dust cover where you could attach a 240mm radiator up here. You would need to remove the optical bay. And that is my only concern with this build overall, is if she does end up wanting an optical drive, despite the fact that she has literally never used the one in her computer, then that would be a concern, however, in terms of cable management. However, she's literally never used the one that she has, so I find that highly unlikely. Overall, the case is pretty cool. There is a built-in card reader, actually, with a SD, and that looks like a micro SD slot, so pretty neat. I also wanted to mention real quick, the case itself came with the screwdriver, which was quite surprising given how cheap it was, and then the cooler itself, the Dark Rock Pro, or Dark Rock 4, not the Pro, from Be Quiet, came with a really nice screwdriver for doing computer stuff. So these are going in my kit because they're actually really nice. Silly thing to care about, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
Shallow breathing, scared to be alone. I wanna care for you, know that you're lonely. I won't be scared of you if you can show me.
Alright, so I'm about to go pick her up from class, and then hopefully we'll be revealing it to her. I can't really go any further with it without having it exposed to her, since it involves switching her files over and logging into accounts and all that jazz. She already knows what it is. I had to mostly get her permission to do this, because otherwise she would have killed me for spending this much money without telling her for a birthday present. That's just how she is. But she hasn't seen it yet, and I don't think she expects anything aesthetically pleasing. And I mean, it's not amazing, but I think she's gonna like it. So it's one day before her birthday, but we're gonna be busy this weekend probably, so it just makes more sense to do this. That way we can go ahead and get it set up. Alright, she already knows what her birthday present is, but she hasn't seen what it looks like or anything yet, so we're gonna go check it out.
Where is it at? Like, oh, under the blanket.
It's under
Wow, I have a spotlight and everything.
Yeah.
You want me like right here, or?
Let me know. She wants to reveal it.
She's my best present.
It was part of the plan.
Okay, so just take it off whenever.
Yep.
Okay.
Rimby, do you want to help?
Birthday
You want to help?
you.
No, she doesn't want to help. Ooh. Turn it on. Cool. So much green. Oh god. It's Genji.
Oh. Did you see the screen?
Oh, you're so sweet.
I was thinking for you, not Genji, but Chikorita or Piccolo maybe.
I've been playing Overwatch recently, that's the only reason. And Piccolo has a lot of purple, so
Well,
you were wrong.
green and purple's my thing.
That was so cute.
It's important to the viewers that it has a name, so I was gonna let you pick, but
I really don't want to name it Genji. I don't know now. I didn't know I'd have to come up with one on the spot.
But yeah, it's really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite the upgrade, and now that I just got my new graphics card, you're actually getting a different graphics card than what's in there.
Can I call it Big Juicy?
You can.
Okay, it's Big Juicy.
Okay.
Because the green is juicy.
Okay.
It's a nice flavor. Thank you for my Big Juicy. I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to what you were saying when I was coming up with the name.
I just said that I have to actually swap out the graphics card that's in it, because I got the upgrade I was waiting on, so now you're getting a better one. That's actually the only not new part in the entire system, is the graphics card, and it's still relatively new. It's just been in the rig I got earlier this year.
You know, I won't be able to tell either way,
Right.
but thank you.
But this is the first one I've built, or given to you, that is basically brand new.
Yeah, I've gotten all of your hand-me-downs so
Yeah.
far. Thank you, sweetie.
So now you have redemption.
What's this? Oh!
It's air filter.
Oh! I broke it.
What are you doing?
I was seeing if I felt air from the
Okay.
fan. Of course, I'm like sticking my hands in this thing that I don't know.
No, I mean...
Shoving my hands all up in Big Juicy over here.
Oh, shit.
That was a bad name. I feel like I have to stick with it now. Thank you.
You're awesome.
So the new rig is, well, amazing. This is my first time with the Ryzen 2600, and it is rocking. I was able to tune in a 3.9-ish gigahertz overclock on the CPU, and even running IDA 64 stress tests, it never got what I would consider to be uncomfortably hot or anything like that. Like, it was running perfectly cool with the configuration as is. Unfortunately, the original white 32 gig RAM kit that I picked up, I could not get the 3000 megahertz. It was a 3000 megahertz XMP profile it was supposed to have. I just couldn't get that to take. That is an issue I run into a lot personally. Keep in mind I have minimal overclocking experience. That is just an issue that I have with a lot of DDR4 RAM. Is certain motherboards just won't take it, and then other motherboards or other RAM kits will work just fine. I had this issue going from my Gigabyte Aorus Gaming 7 motherboard for my X299 rig up to the Asus Workstation Sage motherboard for it. The Gigabyte motherboard wouldn't handle like any RAM overclocks at all, but the Asus Workstation motherboard handled it like a charm. Well, I switched RAM kits to this black Corsair Vengeance LED kit. It's a little taller, but otherwise mostly the same. downgraded her to 16 gigabytes, which is still plenty for what she does, but actually has an XMP profile of 3200 megahertz, and that took immediately. So that is the RAM she ended up with. A little bit extra flair for that little windowed case, and like I said, everything is running very smoothly and very well so far. Went ahead and ran it through the Cinebench paces again, and we went from that measly, barely kept up with the 3rd and 4th gen i7 scores of like 671-ish, I want to say, up to 1305, which is more than, or actually just about exactly double what it got before. So as far as synthetic workloads are concerned, it was a double, it was a 200% performance increase on the CPU, which is insane. The OpenGL benchmark of Cinebench ran at 122.15 frames per second. Now with Overwatch, of course, again, we're still running at 1080p, but the settings were, I didn't even bother testing high, apparently. I'm digging through my benchmark files, and I don't think I even saved the benchmark for high. But I did notice that for Ultra, kicking it up to Ultra at 1080p, the average was 148 frames per second, a max of 221, and an average, or a minimum of 54 frames per second. And kicking it up to Epic, we got an average of 104, a max of 128, and then for whatever reason, something weird with the map that I tested, the minimum was 79, but you get the idea. It is a beast. I wound up settling on for her to play Ultra at 1080p, but then with the automatic render resolution, which usually kicks it up to like 1440p-ish, and it just runs amazing, and she even commented she kind of gets it, kind of sees that it's looking a lot nicer and running a lot smoother. No complaints there. Chu has been busy with classes lately and hasn't had a whole lot of time to do much Guild Wars stuff, but I did try to boot it up and get into the world versus world stuff and just get into like a big mesh chain where it generates a lot of characters on screen. And while I don't have hard benchmarks for it, it was a substantially better experience than on the old computer. A substantially better experience. And that's where that synthetic CPU benchmark kind of reflects the kind of performance gains you're going to see on a game like this versus a game like Overwatch. Now, that being said, Guild Wars 2 is a DirectX 9 game. It's not very well optimized in the first place, but higher CPU core count, higher clock speed per core, it's gonna do better.
So overall, this rig has been really nice. It's been super slick. I've been super happy with it. Despite being my first Ryzen build, it's held up very well. The only issue I ran into was that first RAM kit not working, which was my fault, because I wasn't picking out RAM from specific compatibility lists or anything. I just used what I had. If you were building your own rig, you would look at the motherboard's specific RAM compatibility lists and pick a kit that works out of there. Not a huge deal. Not something most people would need to run into unless they're just using random RAM like I was. And overall, it's ran pretty good. Again, she's been super busy with her papers and her schoolwork, so she hasn't had time to do a whole lot of game testing, but it's been running really nice. And we've gotten to get her some behind the monitor LEDs and some under the desk LEDs, and we're getting some stuff set up that's going to be pretty nice. And so I'm excited. I'm glad that we did this, and I think it turned out pretty well. However, there was something a little spooky that went down that isn't Halloween related that we'll have to cover in a future video because it got kind of scary, but we'll talk about that later. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this little mini series. I am trying to do more hardware related videos. I know I haven't done a ton on the channel. I mess with it a lot on the back end. I finally got my workbench cleaned off over there with my Gamers Nexus mod mat on it that I've had all year that I have just had buried since we moved. So I'm excited to get into more stuff like this, and I already have some new hardware coming in specifically for review. So hopefully we'll get this realm of content going better on the channel. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video series. Subscribe for more tech education and hopefully more hardware related videos. And I'll see you next time.